to our audience that you can submit your questions about candidates via the QR code on the screen. We are monitoring that during the entire length of the debate. We will begin our opening statements with Alexander. Alexander, you have 3 minutes. Your time begins now.
Hello, student body. If you are listening to this debate, then it is because you have a vested interest in the future of DAO. And what I want to do for DAO is primarily for societies, but in doing so will help students. Therefore, I think you should very intently pay attention to what we have to say here today. First and foremost, I would like to do a sort of society expo reform. I think that as it is structured right now is effective at getting students in the building and getting students aware of things happening at DAO, but I do not think it is as effective as it should be at getting students interested in all the possible societies that they would be interested in. I also don't think it is effective at on the society front of like how it is organized, where they are seated, and the timeline from when they sign up for the Society Expo versus where they are, when they find out where they will be seated, and sometimes where they are seated is simply not worth showing up to the event. I think this is some major things which can be changed, which I will go into more detail about on my online platform if you're interested. Another thing which I wish to change about as your VPI is in relation to larger collaborative events. I am president of the Anime Club, and I have worked with the societies who ran the Games Expo for the past 3 years. They are lovely people, and it is one of the highlights of the year, in my opinion. I see no reason why we should have to have only one of these major events when we can have more things, more like a street vendor thing, where Knitting Society and the Craft Society can come together and offer their crafts in a way that both benefits students and promotes their passion, while also benefiting societies because more people are aware of the different things that are going on. And the third most important thing to me is sex and representation. I've been talking to the heads of engineering societies, and they have told me some complaints and some lacks in the form of like the way the DSU interacts with them. I'm not fully aware of all the issues. I'm on the council, of course, so I cannot say the bureaucracy of everything, but I wish to look into it and make sure that they would not have those complaints for the future. On top of this, I also aim to look for issues regarding like things like bounce, things like student funding, student society funding, and in general communication. Thank you.
We now move to Marzan. You have 3 minutes. Please provide your opening statement.
I don't know if it's evening, but good evening, everyone. My name is Marzan Ahmed Chaudhry, and I'm currently running to be your next vice president internal. I'm a third-year applied computer science major, and I originally moved to Canada from Bangladesh in 2022. One of the things that moving to a new country made me realize is how in our university life, it just extends significantly beyond just education, and it's more about the communities that we build, our belonging, and more importantly, connections we build as well. Working with different societies closely over the past couple of years, I have experienced how our societies contribute to the student life and how difficult it can be to navigate through the systems that are built around them. That is a big part of why I'm running today, because personally, I genuinely care about how student life feels on a day-to-day basis, and it's not just in theory, but in practice. One of the best experiences that I've gained in my student life have come through these society involvements as well. But again, I also realized that students feel significantly disconnected from the DSU. It is very easily visible with the voter turnout that we get in our DSU elections as well. Students are not sure about how they are supposed to get involved with events through the DSU. Our societies struggle significantly, and they don't struggle because they lack passion. They are struggling because the processes around them to function are unclear and unnecessarily complicated. And too many students don't even know where to get information from when they actually need it. That is why I'm running today. That is the gap that motivates me. For me, the DSU should not feel distant. It shouldn't feel like something that you only hear about when election comes up or we have some crisis on campus. The vice president's role is not just administrative. It's about shaping the internal student experience, supporting our societies, improving transparency, and making participation easier. We have talked to students who actually want this campus life to thrive. So we have to remove these certain barriers, unclear communication, complex systems, or barriers that discourage involvement. To me, leadership in this role comes down to a simple thing: making the DSU work for the students and not the other way around. Because my campaign bases on 3 values: informed, engaged, and empowered. Because when our students are informed, they participate. When they're engaged, our campus thrives. And when they're empowered, the DSU actually becomes what it was meant to be: a union that truly serves its body and its students. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the debate tonight.
Thank you, Barzan. Zane, you now have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
All right.
Thank you.
Am I audible here? Doesn't look like it.
Not
Testing.
much.
You have the blue mic on, please.
I'm so sorry.
You have the blue mic just for the microphone,
Just try
so
it.
that they can change the volume. Tap it. Yeah.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Am I audible for everyone?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for the feedback, everyone. Hello, and thank you so much for coming to this debate, for this election. I really appreciate you guys taking your time to come here for today. My name is Zainul Abedin, and I'm running for Vice President internal role for the DSU. It's because I believe in building a stronger student community starts with how we support students behind the scenes. I spent the past 3 years deeply involved in student life at Dalhousie as a society member, a volunteer, an exec, a founder, a student council member, a treasurer, and through my work in residence life, where I'm currently serving as a community assistant team lead in Howe Hall, where I'm supporting 370 students, working with 7 community assistants who are welcoming all first-year students and making sure their transition from high school or their transition to university life in general is as smooth as possible. Through these roles, I've seen the DSU from multiple perspectives: as someone navigating its systems, as someone relying on them, and as someone helping others navigate them. What I've learned is this: students and societies don't struggle because they lack ideas or motivation. They struggle when systems are unclear, access feels confusing, or support is hard to reach. And that's where the Vice President internal role matters the most. If elected, my focus is on 3 priorities. First, clearer and more transparent internal systems. This means improving how students and societies interact with processes like event bookings in the student union building, training, and internal policies for societies. So less time is spent guessing and more time is spent building community. Second, expanding access to involvement for all students on campus. With hundreds of ratified societies, Dalhousie has incredible opportunities for everyone.
1 minute more.
But not everyone knows where to start. I want to ensure students feel supported in finding spaces that fit them, and if those spaces don't exist yet, help them in creating them. Third, supporting a more vibrant campus. Through collaboration with societies, residence life, and campus partners, I want to create large-scale, inclusive, year-long events which are not just in orientation. I'm running not to overhaul student life, but to strengthen it by making systems clearer, leadership more accessible, and making involvement easier to access. Thank you, and I look forward to the discussion today.
Thank you, candidates. We'll now enter the question and answer period. We will begin the first question with Alexander. The question is, what is your stance on the difficulties societies have experienced regarding room bookings? You have 2 minutes to respond.
So as someone who is not only the president of a general interest society that's had significant difficulties in recent times with room bookings, but also is friends with other heads of societies and has worked with many societies in regards to room bookings, I can tell you that at the moment it's very difficult and it feels needlessly complicated and incredibly time consuming. I am not entirely aware as to why there is such a timeline between when we submit a room booking request and when we actually get the request. And I've talked with people about how they've submitted a request, and by the time the event is approved, it has already passed their date more than a month afterwards. It is just unnecessary, and I feel like there should be a smoother issue, whether it's hiring more people who are an events coordinator, or whether it's just streamlining the process through some other method. I vow to work towards it and find whatever that solution is and communicate very clearly to societies how they can go about fixing that problem.
Thank you, Alexander. Marzan, would you like me to repeat the question?
Is it the same question?
It is the same.
Okay, yeah, I'll just go ahead.
You have 2 minutes.
I think, first of all, since we have enough rooms at the DSU and other spaces which can be booked, it doesn't make sense why societies will be struggling to find room bookings unless it's on a very specific time where every society is trying to book it at the same time. That doesn't really happen. Let's be very fair. I think it's the miscommunication between the societies, or I would re-quote myself and I would say not miscommunication, I would say it's the lack of understanding between the societies and the full-time staff that actually work. It's often seen that the full-time staff takes forever to respond to our societies regarding the room bookings and other things. I'll just give you one quick example myself. Yesterday actually, because the campaign period is running, I requested for a table to be booked for tomorrow. Until I emailed them back again twice, they didn't get back to me and then said they missed my emails. So I think it's very important for our full-time staff and for the DSU to mention, the DSU to ensure that the full-time staff are constantly monitoring these emails from societies, these requests from societies, and every one of those requests are being sorted on the same day. They are full-time staff, they can do it, and we need to make sure we at the DSU are actually accomplishing it in time.
Thank you, Marzan. Zane, you have 2 minutes to answer the question. Would you like the question repeated?
That would be lovely. Thank you so much, Reed. If you could repeat that.
Absolutely. What is your stance on the difficulties societies have experienced regarding room bookings? Your 2 minutes begins now.
All right. It's something that is not new to me. Being in societies and being involved in society bookings for the past 3 years, I've had several events that have had to be delayed, cancelled, or fully scrapped out for the entire year because we didn't get a response in time for our room bookings. Just right now, I can give you an example of me hosting a conference for the end of February, where I've been in email correspondences from late December, and just this morning, after around 10 different email threads, I was able to get a final room booking for my conference. And these types of things really demoralize societies here. This is something that ruins precedents for society leaders, and it also ruins all the motivations society members or society leaders might have for training new staff or training new students who might be interested in becoming involved in societies. One stance that I can see is it's easy to say from the outside what's wrong with student staff. It's really easy to blame full-time staff from the outside, and I can completely understand that they're human. From the outside, and right now what I can say is it's really easy for us to maybe have a follow-up system, have a general timeline for how societies should be following up with the full-time staff. If you don't hear a response in 1 week, maybe reach out to the first full-time staff member. If you don't in 2 weeks, reach out to the second full-time staff member. Also, we can also have form numbers for your submissions. It's really easy to have your submission, and you can also use that as a reference while reading those email correspondences, because there have been many wasted email threads where I've had to struggle to explain what my event is or what it's about, when I could just easily say, I submitted form number 1156, can I please get an update on that? Thank you so much.
Thank you, candidates. You will now have 2 minutes for rebuttal. If you wish to speak during the rebuttal portion, please raise your hand. Zane, we begin with you.
Yes, I have a small rebuttal for Marzan. I do recall you mentioning how there's a lack of understanding between full-time staff and students, and I want to hear your thoughts about the booking that you're going through right now, the issues you had. Totally understandable. It is frustrating to not be able to get your booking for election taping, but it's also nice to be mindful that they are in fact humans at the end of the day. This election timetable is a busy timetable overall. We are, around 18 members who are running, who are always asking for tabling. So I really do hope or want to understand that we should get things back. We should give them a grace period.
Marzan, you now have the floor.
I think you're okay to point that out, but I'll also mention that students during the election period are running on an extremely small timeline. Plus, on Friday we have Monroe Day, so it's not unsurprising that the DSU staff is not aware about the timelines. They are aware about the timelines. They know which personnel are running for which positions. So if a person is requesting for a time booking, I'm not saying that I need an answer by the next hour, next 2 hours, but if it's been a day and there has been no response, and someone wants to table the following day again, I repeat, the election is running on a very tight schedule. We don't have a very long running schedule where we can wait for 2-3 days till we get a table. We are running on an extremely tight schedule. So where the DSU understands that the schedule is tight, it's not rocket science to look at emails and just respond to them. It's just asking if that timeline is available and if that timeline can be booked. And again, like I said, I don't want a 1 hour response. I'm saying within the 24 hours, because if I'm responding to you if I'm emailing you at least around like 48 hours before, if I get an answer 24 hours before, I'm happy. So it's just about making sure that they are accountable to responding everyone in time. And this is not just with DSU members or candidates, but it's with other societies when they request it, so they get response in time.
Thank you, Marzan. I'll now give an opportunity to Alexander to respond, and this will conclude this round of rebuttal. Alexander?
Sorry, am I responding to what Zane said, or can I ask a question of another candidate?
You may ask a question of another candidate because we have not had time to interview.
Sorry. I wanted to go to Zane. I understand the humanity of the people working in the DSU and how they're just humans and that they have things in life. They do get stressed, they do get overwhelmed. But at the moment, the system is failing. And if you do not recognize the system is failing and just say, oh, they're just people, just give them more time, everyone will suffer. And like you said, it takes a long time. And I understand that you are able to do long-term correspondence and take a month before you can get an answer. Not everyone can do that. And I think that if the system is failing, as it is right now, then we need to either hire more people, we need to change the system, or we need to replace the system. I do not think replacing the system is viable. I think that hiring another person is certainly not a bad idea. Or I think that changing the way that it works to make it more streamlined so that not everything has to go through this one specific person is not a terrible idea either.
Thank you, Alexander. We'll finish this official round of rebuttal with a final response from Zane. Zane, if you'd be able to keep it within 30 seconds, please.
Yes, I never said the system is not failing. I am only saying that it's nice to be mindful and know that because we have such strict timelines, we were also aware of these timelines for the past few months. So it is the onus at the end of the day is on you to be able to book those spaces, to be able to book those study spots, those timelines before these things happen. We were accepted and we were at the general meeting on February 2nd, February 1st. Right after that, you do have a chance to reach out to members, to the events and management staff, events and conference staff, and let them know right then and there. Because I do recall you saying that you booked at night for the next day.
Thank you. That concludes this round of rebuttal. We'll now head to the second question.
I just have.
You'll be able to maybe link that in with the response to the second question.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, the second question for candidates, and we will begin with Marzan. Should all societies receive equal base funding? And if so, where would that funding come from? And how would non-members still benefit? You have 2 minutes to respond.
Ideally, yes. But in a real world situation, that doesn't work out. DSU has a limited amount of funding that they can fund with societies. We can explore the option of a grant scoring rubric that I mentioned as a part of my campaign, where societies can mention about the kind of activities they do, and based on that, we can decide how much grant they can get on a term basis and eventually on the yearly basis. There are over 300 societies at Dell. Providing them equal amount of fund is difficult. Let's just be very honest here. It's important to also recognize which societies are contributing the most to begin with and supporting them, while also making sure that the other societies are not being left out. Providing them as much grant from the grant funds that we have left possible, while also making sure they get the most amount of support. Support doesn't only stop at funding. We
One minute
can,
warning.
sorry?
1 minute.
Okay, support doesn't only stop at funding. Support can be through various other systems. We can promote their events. We can make sure that their event gets as much exposure as possible. It is actually a part of my campaign. If you look about the society events page, where we plan to promote these societies' events as much as possible so they can get the necessary exposure. If these societies can just get exposure, we can get more members, and these societies can eventually organize more events without having to stress so much about the funding. As they keep organizing more events, we can explore options of those fundings if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Marzan. Zane, you have 2 minutes to respond. You require that the question be repeated.
So am I answering the question?
Yes, the
Could
same
you
question.
please repeat the question
Yes,
for
sir.
me? Thank you.
Should all societies receive equal base funding? And if so, where would that funding come from? And how would non-members still benefit? You have 2 minutes.
I do not agree that all societies should receive the same funding. The current system that we have, categorizing societies, is good enough for now. At least from what I know, levied societies are levied for a reason. They give out grants, they work for large-scale events, and they deliver huge events that are consistent on a regular basis. From what I understand, I'm more than happy to talk about it with society members, with society execs, and society leaders. From my understanding, the society funding that we have, at least it should not be the most equal. Societies do have different contributions, and there should be enough funds on our end for societies to give out to societies as grants or as bursaries or as small funds for any events that they might want to do. That's all I have for this one.
Thank you, Zane. Alexander, you now have 2 minutes to respond to the same question. Do you require that question to be repeated?
No, thank you. I'm good. So yes, I agree with Zane here. I 100% think that society should not be given an equal amount of money based off of some metric, whether that be membership, whether that be the longevity of the society. If, for example, we were to do something like that, then you, who wants to start the table tennis society, would have to go up against giants like the esports society. And when you're starting off, generally you have a small population. Maybe, if you're lucky, you can get 10 of your friends to sign your petition, and maybe, if you're lucky, you can get 10 people at a meeting. Esports Society, as it is currently, has over 1,600 members in their online Discord. There is absolutely zero chance you can compete with them if we do by a metric of that standard. So, I believe that equality should be based off not membership or something of the sort, but that funding should be based off of the value that they will add to how many people they can have, the cost that it will take to get that society started initially, be that supplies, something of the sort, and how viable this society is to continue, not just this year, but in all future years of DSU. And I think that doing something like this will benefit non-members of those societies because they themselves can now be more involved in a society that they want to start. I think they can be more involved in other smaller societies, helping them get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. We will now begin with the rebuttal. The first hand that I see is from Marzan. Marzan, you have about 30 seconds for your rebuttal.
I'll ask this to you both, just as a question and curiosity, when we say that there should not be a rubric for deciding on grants for societies. How do you otherwise then decide how are we going to fund these societies? Because those rubrics exist for a very simple reason, that we can decide which society gets how much fund based on those rubrics that they score. Is there another way that you think this can be done? If so, I'd love to hear that from you, from both of you actually.
By all means. Thank you. I appreciate
Zane, you have the floor.
Thank you. I never said that the rubric is not fine. I think the rubric that we currently have, or the system that we currently have for societies to reach out for grants or funding, is fine as it is. I have reached out for funding multiple times for my own societies, like the Dalhousie Digital Photography Society, which I really ratified last year, which grew from 0 to 150 members in the mailing list. And I was able to do that just fine by asking for funding, going through specific channels, explaining why I need the funding, and then I was able to get it. I think the onus is on the Vice President internal to be able to communicate and deliberate to all society members and society execs on what the funding is, how it works, and how to best get it.
Thank you, Zane. Alexander, would you like to respond?
to kind of further what Zane was saying, again, I do not think a rubric is inherently bad. However, a rubric takes the humanity out of the club. I am a person. I know what I want to do for the people of Dow, and I think that what is best for deciding on student funding is not for us to submit a form which you read over hundreds of and then decide almost arbitrarily the value of that form. I think it is best if instead we have the VPFO and the VPI come together and talk to the heads of these societies, either in an in-person meeting or through email regulations. I understand that will be a time-consuming process, but if you do not get the people behind these societies, you will not get what they're doing. And if you can't get what they're doing, why are you recruiting funding in the beginning?
Thank you, Alexander. That concludes rebuttal for this question. We will now move to our third of four questions. The third question, and we'll begin with Zane. The question is, you have all mentioned your interest and commitment to student societies. What other responsibility of the VPI role do you think is less publicized, but equally as important? You now have 2 minutes to respond.
Can I ask you to read the question again, please?
Again, we'll pause the timer. You have all mentioned your interest and commitment to student societies. What other responsibility of the VPI role do you think is less publicized, but equally as important? You have 2 minutes to respond.
Yes, thank you. I think this isn't something I've seen for the past 3 or 4 years for the VPI role, but I think from my past experience of working for the past 3 years in residence life, how crucial and how important it is to work with first-year incoming resident students to be able to cultivate them and work with them to make the future leaders we have on campus. I'm currently serving as the in-residence council representative. I just got this role last month. Woo! And right now I'm doing my part of reviving the residence council, making it a thing again for students to get involved in from starting next year. There's a lot of funding that we can already use that has not been utilized. It's been funding that's been collected for the past 8-ish years, and funding for anyone and everyone who applies to residence. It's around, from what I understand, it's around $300,000, which has been untouched. This is something I really want to focus on reviving, because at the end of the day, these resident students, those students who are coming for first time, who are coming to residence life, or are experiencing that housing university for the first time, with that funding, we can create so many more events for the year. The Residence Council is a massive deal spanning across 6 different residents that we have. Each of them have their own government systems. What I want to do in that is be able to share those meetings or be able to be a part of that meeting and guide the Residence Council on what they can do and what they can't do. Because there is power in numbers and there is power in the community that we will be raising or cultivating the future leaders of residents or that houses students. Thank you.
Thank you, Zane. Alexander, you now have an opportunity to respond to the same question within 2 minutes. Do you need to repeat it? Yeah. Yes, absolutely. You have all mentioned your interest and commitment to student societies. What other responsibility of the VPI role do you think is less publicized but equally as important? Your 2 minutes starts now.
So yeah, one of my core running points is, of course, interacting with Sexton. I think that as the internal of the DSU, the communications and the relationship between our 2 campuses are very important, and that is something which the VPI should have a say in how, the relationships and building it and make sure that it stays strong. I've already talked about that, so I'll move on to my second point, which is kind of similar to Zane in getting first-year students involved. I want to get teachers and faculty much more involved in the spreading of information regarding DSU and Dalhousie services as a whole. I think there is no reason why we can't have or ask students of all the first-year classes to post a little thing during times around, say, the Society Expo. Like, hey, first-year students, this is how you get involved in this student life at Dow. Hey, first-year students, these are the elections going on. Maybe you haven't heard of them, or maybe you don't feel like you should be interested in them, but they will affect the next 3 years of your program here at Dow. Pay attention, please, and this is how you can pay attention, this is how you can get involved. If you're interested in running, this is what you do. Because as it stands, first-year students are left to reading emails and word of mouth. And as a first-year student myself, in the past, I can tell you, I didn't read a lot of emails. Not thoroughly, not where all the important information was. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. Well, one more, please. Thank you, Alexander. We'll now move to Marzan. Marzan, you have 2 minutes. Would you like the question repeated?
I'm good, thank you. I'll take over from Alexander here and saying, yes, we need to prioritize on taking care of these first year students at the very beginning. But alongside that, one other thing that I find is quite neglected is the website of the DSU. It exists, and that's about it. It exists. How many people are actually able to find meaningful things, useful things? That can be a very important communication setup between societies, students, and the union itself. It's never utilized. Let's just bring something very simple here. Council meetings happen on a 3-week to a monthly basis. It takes over almost a month to get those council meetings updated to the website. Why such delay? We need to bring those things on time for the students. We need to make sure that the website is updated with the most recent information for students. Plus, we need to make the website more communicative for the students and the society so they can use that more easily and more frequently and actually in a way that helps them out.
Thank you. We'll now move to the rebuttal section of this question. Who would like to speak? Alexander, would you like to speak? You now have about 30 seconds. The rebuttal time has begun.
Hi, to Marzan. I understand the importance of the DSU website. As someone who has interacted with people who update other parts of General Dalhousie's website, I can say that it is not so much the oversight of the DSU, but an oversight of kind of Dow as a whole in how they operate their website. My partner used to update the part which regards their lab at the time, and they were the ones responsible for updating all the information. And I can guarantee you, because they met other people who were also students, they were the ones updating that little bit of information. There was no general oversight, and that is an issue which I think the DSU should bring up, not for the DSU, but for Dow as a whole, to have a general website overview.
Thank you, Alexander. Marzan, you
If you know, the VP internal position holds the official correspondent of the DSU website as well. As part of that, we can personally oversight how the DSU website is functioning, but I agree to your point that we should consider the DAL website as a whole itself as well to make sure things are updated on time and everything else regarding that.
Thank you, Marzan. Zane, would you like to contribute? You're all good? Okay, perfect. That concludes the rebuttal for this section for this question. So we're entering our fourth and final question. This question will be slightly different due to what people have submitted from the audience. Each question will be posed to you individually. They will be person-specific based off of the feedback we've received. There will be no rebuttal based off of the answers you respond. We will begin with Alexander. In your opening statement, you spoke about restructuring the Society Expo. How do you plan to do this? You have 2 minutes to respond. Your time begins now.
Hi. To whoever responded, I would highly recommend checking out the forum, which I have in a link to my Instagram. I detail absolutely everything. And to those of you interested, check out the forum on my Instagram. I have everything I'm going to say here listed in words exactly as I want it to be. Primarily, let me just go to the part. Yes, I want to confirm with societies much more in advance of where they will be, when they will be there. Because as it stands now, for at least this past year, it felt like we got confirmation of where we were going to be the day before or the morning of. That is very stressful to societies, especially when you're new, especially when you don't check your emails as often, and especially when, if you're new and you don't have a lot of time, is it worth it to go to the expo if you're just going to be stuck in some corner room? I want to keep everything, or at least attempt to keep everything in the second floor of the sub. This is a wonderful spot which will allow students to still have a spot in the sub, both on the third floor and on the first floor, to have their general space, to have their meals, to do their work, but also taking this floor for Society Expo, keeping everything equal. Everyone will have the same amount of foot traffic. I want to extend the timeline. One day is good, but it's not good enough for societies who can't make that specific day that I said. There is no reason for a society to be smited just because they have an exam that day. And I also want to list the attending societies in an easy to access form right at the entrance through a QR code or through a link to our website. And I also want to highlight new societies, particularly by putting those in the second floor main area so that those that are new can get the most amount of engagement. Also, I want to group societies by general interest, so science societies are near each other, queer societies near each other, Black students associations near each other, logical organizations, which makes it more easy to flow. That is all.
That's all.
Thank you.
Our question goes to Marzan. How are you planning to increase student engagement? What do you think is currently missing with how societies communicate with students? You have 2 minutes. Your time starts now.
Student engagement with societies mostly depend on if you look at it on social media and the tables that the societies set up during expos, it is quite, and as, to be honest, to be fair, bringing Alex's points here, students mostly end up, and societies depend on these expos to get students. I think we need to increase the exposure of how the societies are reaching out to students further. That the societies are easily able to reach out to more students. How do societies reach out to students? Most of the cases, it's through Instagram. I think we need to move out of that and have a central events set up in our DSU website, which I've campaigned for, is where our societies, every single society, can let the DSU know of all the kinds of events that they will be doing, which we will in turn from the DSU promote not only on our events page, but also on our social media, to make sure that students can feel free to engage in any of these events without having to find these societies' web pages on Instagram. The DSU web page should be enough for every single student and societies to market themselves. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marzan. Zain, this next question is for you. Earlier, you spoke about gaps in training. What are these gaps? How do you plan to fill these gaps? A lot of gaps in that question. You have 2 minutes. Your question starts now.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the answer. So, I don't know about you guys, but being an exec this past year has been really confusing with the introduction of bounce. I don't know what bounce is, if I'm being honest. I've done all the training that we got. I attended the training that was in person, or was shifted to online by the end of that session, or was before the end of the day. It's been really frustrating working with bounce. I don't know about you, but having to have every single thing go through bounce, but not being enforced, but also being encouraged, while the older systems that we have are still so easy for us, is such an unclear process where I've had lots of students who are frustrated, and I've had lots of safety execs who still don't even know what bounce is. What I want to do is first try to understand why are we using bounce, get talking to the stakeholders that we have in DSU, try to understand what effects that we have from bounce, or what is the positive engagement, because if we're being honest, websites are kind of fading away. People are on reels, people are on that short form content nowadays. So bounce can be used really well, but I think we need clearer training for it beforehand. So one of my biggest initiatives for the summer would be to understand what bounce is, how it works, why we need it, and deliver the best training that I can for all SIT members. And not just for the start of the year, but making it consistent enough for people to refer back year over year. So it can be just like the PEO training that we have, where students can just go through the training and try to understand what they have, answer a questionnaire, and then maybe assess their training, assess how they know how to use bounce, or assess how they know how to use event platforms that we have. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zain. With that response, this concludes the Vice President internal section of debate. Please join us in a round of applause.
Best of luck to all candidates. Who are we shaking hands?
Thank you, candidates.